If I could call the roll first, just to make sure I've got a record of everybody.
I look at the agenda, I'm not looking at the screen, Elizabeth. Yep. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah. All right, I'm going to call the roll. If you could bring yourself off mute when I call your name, that would be great, because I can't see everyone to see if you raise your hand. Sheila Bashiri.
Present.
Josh Brown.
Present.
Jeff Buchheit.
Present.
James Delgado.
Present.
Julie Ernstein.
Present.
Al Feldstein.
Present.
Sarah Filkins.
Present.
Laura Mears.
Present.
Rodney Little. Barbara Peka.
Present.
Sam Parker.
Here.
Franklin Robinson. Marty Azzola. Dean Camlin.
Here.
Dick Charlton.
Here. I was here last meeting too, and I noticed it wasn't there.
Okay, we'll add that in. Sakina Linder. Doug Reed. Lisa Sasser.
Present.
Harry Spikes. Charlie Steck. I saw Charlie. Come on.
Sorry, couldn't come off mute.
Okay. Kirsty Unala.
Present.
Senator Neal. Senator West. And Delegate Gilchrist. And we wouldn't really expect Senator West or Delegate Gilchrist to be available right now, since we're in the middle of the legislative session. So we do have a quorum. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on then to approval of minutes. Everyone have a chance to review, and we do have the correction that Dick was present.
Move to approve with the correction.
Okay,
Josh.
thank you.
Second.
Thanks.
All in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any no's? Okay, very good. Thank you. Elizabeth, I don't believe we have anybody signed up for public comment. Has that changed?
No, no one has signed up for public comment.
Okay, very good. Okay, so then we're going to move right along then to committee reports. And Historic Preservation Awards. Nell's going to tell us all about them. So, Nell.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? You all are echoing on my side. Am I echoing for you?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think if everyone who isn't speaking could put yourselves on mute, that would help with the echo.
Okay. If not, I can sign off here and call in if that's easier and watch it on my screen or something. Okay. Okay, great. All right. Well, we have an interesting, I think, good slate of awards to share with you. You should have your resolution in front of you. And it's my understanding that Anne is running the PowerPoint. So I chose this new template, and now I can't decide if I think it's too 80s and weird. Y'all can share later if you think it was a bad decision. But we can go ahead and run through. The first category is leadership and service. And so that would be the second slide. Sorry. So the first category is leadership and service. We have 3 in this category for this round: the Calvert Prize, outstanding individual leadership at the local level, and outstanding organizational leadership at the local level. Next slide. All right. So the Calvert Prize, many of you will know Ted Mack. He was nominated for the Calvert Prize this year by one of your own. He has a lifetime of service in promoting African-American history and culture and has made a tremendous statewide impact in Maryland, particularly in his 8 years as chair of the Maryland Commission on African-American History and Culture. Among his achievements are helping to create and permanently reauthorize this very successful African American Heritage Preservation Program, which has served as a model nationally, and expanding the commission to represent all Maryland counties. I don't know if anyone has any questions, if we'd like to do that as we go along. Otherwise, I'll just go through the slate and we can have a discussion afterwards. I'm seeing nodding. Okay, great. Next slide, please. For outstanding individual leadership, Susan Hansen has advocated for the maintenance and preservation of Frederick County's rural roads for over 40 years. Her early efforts culminated in the establishment of the Rural Roads Program, which stopped the automatic paving of the county's remaining 60 miles of gravel roads. And her current efforts are focused on continued protection and maintenance, largely through county road policy for historic roads, their landscapes, aesthetics, and safety. Next slide, please. You can see a little bit of her work there. And you can go ahead to the next slide. For outstanding organizational leadership, we have the Prince George's County MNC PBC Black History Month, or sorry, Black History Program. Been talking about Black History Month so much in February. The transition is hard. Founded in 1982, MNC PBC's Black History Program has developed public programming on African American history for over 40 years to enhance site interpretation and history education in Prince George's County. The program is now staffed by 3 experts in the field who conduct new research, create engaging exhibits, and assist in interpreting dozens of MNC PBC properties and parks. This nomination was actually submitted for the Calvert Prize, but recategorized by the committee because it is focused on the local level. So it's more appropriate for this category. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The next category is education and community engagement. We have 3 awards in this category: excellence in public programming, excellence in media and publications, and excellence in community engagement. And I believe we only have awarded 2 in this category this year. Yes. Next slide, please. Annapolis Maritime Museum and Park for Our Changing Waterfront. This was actually submitted for community engagement, but was a better fit for excellence in public programming. This new permanent exhibit connects residents and visitors with Annapolis's maritime heritage and the ecology of the Chesapeake Bay. Next slide, please. The exhibit highlights include high-tech digital interactives such as holographic waterman, virtual reality experiences, aquarium and outdoor habitats, and climbable hands-on elements, including a small dinghy and large ship's wheel to encourage multi-sensory learning and discovery. Next slide, please. For excellence in media and publications, we have Kathy Thompson and Nicole Dielman for In the Midst of These Plains, which is a 500-page authoritative history of Charles County as documented through its historic architecture and landscapes. Next slide, please. Published by the MHT Press in 2021, the book is the result of many years of research and survey. And if anyone has questions about whether or not we can publish a book and award a prize, we have done this in the past. We're really recognizing the authors of this book and the work that went in to the publication, not ourselves and our publishing arm. Next slide, please. In the category of stewardship, we have 2 for this round: outstanding stewardship of archaeological resources and outstanding stewardship by government agency. Next slide, please. For the first one, Joe and Cheryl Smith are stewards of the Barwick's Ordinary Archaeological Site, which is associated with the first seat of Caroline County, dating from 1774 to 1790. Next slide, please. The Smiths graciously host professional archaeological excavations with public education components to discover archaeological data related to this colonial Maryland tavern. This nomination was submitted by MHT staff. Next slide, please. In the category of outstanding stewardship by a government agency, we have Washington County is the government that's being recognized. This nomination actually came in from Gruber Latimer Restoration for commercial and institutional rehabilitation. And the committee noted that we don't actually have an appropriate category for structures like bridges, which is something that when we're looking at the categories again, which we hope to do by next year, this is something that we'd like to sort of take into consideration, how to appropriately recognize structures that don't fall within our current categories. But this is a good example of impressive stewardship by Washington County and partnering with these firms to preserve the Claggett's Mill bridges. And actually, I want to call your attention to the resolution. I believe it says Claggett's Mill Bridge on the resolution. I was under the impression that it was one bridge, but when I was putting the PowerPoint together, I see that it's two bridges. So that's a small change that we would need to make. Built in 1840 and 1841, respectively, the Claggett's Mill Bridge and Claggett's Mill Race Bridge were deteriorating when the $1.4 million restoration project began in 2019. The general contractor building system stabilized both bridges, installed a reinforced roadbed, capped the new stone walls, and re-diverted Antietam Creek to its natural state prior to restoration. Gruber Latimer Restoration carefully restored and rebuilt the stone walls and arches. Next slide, please. The bridge is open to the public in the spring of 2020. And this slide shows a little bit of the restored stonework. We do need some better images for this project, so I'll be working with the nominee to get those together. But otherwise, we felt like it was a good nomination and deserved to be recognized. Next slide, please. For Project Excellence, we have 3 awards this year: Excellence in Commercial and Institutional Rehabilitation, Community Impact, and Preservation Partnerships. Next slide, please. For the first, Casa Baltimore Bell North Theater, the 1921 Bell North Theater in the East Monument Historic District had been vacant prior to its purchase and rehabilitation by Casa de Maryland. Next slide. The LEED Gold Rehab Project restored the original spatial volumes of the theater, repaired original features such as the plaster ceilings, and reconstructed missing features, including the original marquee. The project has tripled Casa's service capacity to more than 11,000 clients annually, allowing greater access to job training, employment services, youth and literacy programs, and social services. Next slide, please. In community impact, we have the Ministry of Brewing, which creatively converted the National Register listed St. Michael's Catholic Church into a brew pub and a 37-unit apartment complex in East Baltimore. The project has created 25 new jobs and resulted in a 5-fold increase in the local property tax base. Next slide, please. The founders plan to expand the community impact by launching a summer course that teaches lab skills to Baltimore City High School seniors to help them prepare for future jobs in research or industry. And both of these projects did benefit from historic tax credits, and our tax credit staff were very supportive of awarding both of these. Next slide, please. This is another small change that I wanted to flag for your resolution as I was putting the PowerPoint together. This is a Project Excellence Award. Catoctin Furnace Historical Society put forward the award and themselves as the nominee, but because it's really an award for Project Excellence, it's Catoctin Furnace as a whole that's the project, and the Historical Society will be recognized among many of the other partners. So it's more properly an award to Catoctin Furnace. Preserving and interpreting the industrial village of Catoctin Furnace, including important cultural landscapes and 12 structures, has been a collaborative effort over decades. Next slide. I'm going to read off some of the partners. This is a bit of a long list, but I think it's really impressive to hear everybody that they've been collaborating with over the years. Research, educational, and programmatic partners include ARCH, which is African American Resources Cultural and Heritage Society, Frederick County Public Schools STEM program, Maryland DNR, National Park Service multiple sites and programs, Silver Oak Academy, which is part of the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services, Jack and Jill of America, International Coalition of Sites of Conscience, Harriet Chapel, Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, the Episcopal Diocese, numerous colleges and universities, Frederick County Public Libraries, the Smithsonian Institution, the Department of Genetics of Harvard Medical School, the Greenwald Garden Club, Preservation Maryland, the Maryland State Highway Administration, Visit Frederick, Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area, Livable Frederick, Baltimore Museum of Industry, Pine Grove Furnace, Living Classrooms, and Keystone Ironworks. And that's actually slimmed down a little bit from the list that they gave me. These partnerships, cultivated and sustained by Catoctin Furnace Historical Society, have created a vibrant, diverse, and welcoming atmosphere in which visitors and residents of all ages can learn the rich history of ironmaking and the individuals enslaved and free who labored there. And that is our slate of awards. If you click to the next slide, you'll see the summary sheet. It's over 2 slides, so you can click through if you would like. And does anyone have any questions?
I have a comment. This Al Feldstein?
Yes.
Yeah, I was on the committee, and I just want to say I'm particularly happy that Mr. Mack is getting some recognition. And that's all I wanted to say.
I have a comment, Sam.
Yes.
I want to compliment the committee. I think the selection really shows the breadth and, of course, the diversity of the state. And I think you did an excellent job in the variety of selections and topic areas. And so it really brings to fore the richness of the state when it comes to these issues. I particularly want to self-interest. Prince George's County MNC PPC Black History Program has been around 40 years, but they're doing some really excellent work. The commission owns a lot of significant historic sites themselves, and they're doing a very good job in the last few years of the reinterpretations of some very important sites, Calvert, Riverdale, Calvert Mansion, Marietta, Surrattsville House, and really giving a broader picture of what that history is all about. And I also want the CASA, which is a immigrant, addresses the issues of immigrant population, especially the Latino population. Their work in Baltimore is the second major restoration of a building for their offices. They did one in Prince George's County using historic tax credits. So it's really kind of a great demonstration of how an organization like that has and its roots and what it stands for sees the importance of the restoration of these buildings, and it's put a lot of resources and time and effort. So at least the 2 that I know in the county and the one that you just recognized in Baltimore. So I think great job everybody.
Thanks, Sam. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for now?
I have just one comment, Dick Charlton. I think this, to the extent that it's possible, I know we already do a lot, but that's the kind of thing that I believe should be publicized greatly. See if we can get spotlight on some of this. It's good stuff.
That is certainly our hope. So we will be doing the celebration individually at each of these sites, working with the awardees to figure out, how to shape that the way that will work best for them. But we'll be doing a certificate presentation locally and live streaming that to Facebook. We'll also reach out to local media and local elected officials for each of those. So it's an experiment, but we're hopeful that that will garner some more attention, especially in the press, than we've been able to really get for the awards previously.
Very good. Sounds like a plan. In social media now, I mean, a lot of these things, if you could highlight them on social media, that would be great too.
Yeah. Yeah. The ceremonies will be live streamed. At least that's the plan. And we'll be sharing images as well. But that won't be until May. So the notifications for these awards, assuming that we don't have awardees watching on YouTube, which is also fine, we'll be notifying folks after this meeting and starting that planning.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, we do have a resolution that we need to consider to approve the 2022 Maryland Preservation Awards as recommended by the committee.
I move the resolution be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving this resolution?
Aye.
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 And Laura, should the sorry, this is Julie. Should the motion be to approve the resolution as amended by Nell in her presentation?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, that is a very good point.
I accept the amendment.
Thank you. Everybody approve the resolution with the amendment. Please say aye.
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 Thank you. Anybody oppose? Anybody abstaining from voting on this? Okay, very good. The motion is approved. Thank you now.
Thank you.
Okay. Heritage Preservation Fund, Anne.
Good morning, everybody. I have another fairly straightforward request for 2022 funding through the Heritage Preservation Fund. And in May, we'll have a full slate for fiscal year 2023. And hopefully we'll be at about $180,000 to give out, or not give out all of at the next meeting. So we're still working off of the fiscal year 2022 amounts, which are shown in your backup information in your packet. But the funds that are remaining for expenditure in fiscal year 2022 are $50,000 approximately. And this request is for $6,000 to fund a public archaeology internship at the Mac Lab, which is something that the board often funds annually, and in fact did fund for last summer. The issue is just one of timing, because if they waited for the May meeting, it would be too late to still get an intern in time for the public archaeology program this summer. So they're making the request at this time.
Okay. So when is that program? When does that take place this summer, Anne?
That is in the full packet. So if you give me just a second, I will scroll to it.
May and early June.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Sam.
I'm interested in how and where you recruit. I know archaeology is a specialized field, of course, but I think if it's also an opportunity to send out the notice as wide as possible, so folks of color or other backgrounds at least see that there is some opportunity out there. I'm not necessarily saying that that's who you pick specifically, but at least broaden your outreach. I get the impression that you are looking for folks local, because it is something someone may do while going to school, so that's somewhat limited. And also to pay $15 an hour is not a lot, but at least to make sure that you get as wide of advertisement that this is available out there as possible. It's my recommendation.
Thank you, Sam. And I don't know exactly how you all are going to advertise this, but I'm sure that you'll make sure that you get it out to as many.
Right. So the Mac Lab will advertise it at local colleges as you expected, Sam. And often I would say they get an intern from St. Mary's College, or, you know, that's sort of the most convenient. Although since it is in the summer, they could have someone from another school, and I know they put it out on social media as well, but I'll definitely mention to them.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Okay, if there are no other questions for Anne on this matter, we have a resolution.
Julie.
Laura, can I just toss in?
Yes.
That it might be helpful to explore putting it up on PreserveNet, because there's not a cost attached to that, and that goes nationally to NCPE, the National Council on Preservation Education, and we're doing our interviews right now for summer interns at the Park Service, and ours is going to be a remote internship, but we get to draw nationally, so this has a very wide readership. That's all. Thanks.
That was PreserveNet?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
I'll just comment that I do think we do that for the archaeology internship that's based out of Crownsville. That is a tool that we use.
This is Lisa. There are a couple other good resources on social media. There's a historic preservation professionals group on Facebook, and there is a African American preservation professionals group on Facebook too, that might both be possibilities.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa. Anybody else have any suggestions, comments, questions? Okay. Then can we have a motion to approve the resolution to approve an expenditure of up to $6,000?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'll be archaeologist jumping in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone abstaining? Very good. This motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along. Investment committee report. Sam, would you like to give your report for us, please?
Sure. We did have a committee meeting, and we didn't really have the financial status right at the moment, but of course we went over the risks. No one can avoid the Ukrainian war and the proposed sanctions, but the conclusion was, from our investments, it's really not an impact. It's de minimis for our particular investments. But the risks that are out there, of course, are inflation, oil prices, and interest rates. But the key points that our advisors are looking at are inflation and the interest rates. That being said, and again, every meeting is this churn of activity that affects investment, but we are holding the course with our investments and the type of investments and the diversity of investments, and so we aren't making any changes at this point in time. So everything from our perspective is status quo. There was a question, I thought an interesting question. Do we have any of our investments in Russian assets? We do have a very small 1% one of our funds has a 1% investment in Russian assets, an emerging markets index fund, but it was felt that we don't really have a lot of influence in what they do or how that investment fund works, but we didn't feel it was a lot to be worried about at this particular time. So any questions on the dollar issues, investment issues?
Anybody have any questions, Mr. Sam? No? All right, thank you, Sam.
So about the when do we address the policy? Now?
Yes. If we
Okay.
could discuss that now.
One of the issues that the investment committee wanted to address was responsible investment policy, and that deals with how our investments are made in relationship to the environment, social issues, and governance. And we established a small committee, and we had our Brown investment advisors help us to address the impact of moving in that direction, what the trends are, how the financial industry is involved in those issues from an investment perspective, and what impact it may have on our returns. Short story is that, of course, environmental, social, and governance issues are very important on everybody's mind, and that many of the major companies are seeing this as an important factor in where they put their money, how their products are built, and their concern about the impact that they have on these particular issues. So we were very interested in moving and addressing from our perspective of how our funds are invested and where they are invested. But we also have a fiscal responsibility to make sure that the funds that we do invest meet our investment policy goals and don't work to the detriment of our ultimate fiscal responsibility. So what we, working with Brown advisors, and we decided to come up with a request that the board institute an investment policy, that we not change our investment guidelines, but that there be a statement from the board that directs the investment committee and our advisors to address environmental, social, and governance issues when looking at the investment of our funds. It becomes an additional factor in how we make our investments. Also cognizant of our return objectives. And so also associated with this, and I think is important, it also looks at who's doing our investment. Do our investment advisors have on their staff or folks of color, folks of different backgrounds in their investment, on their investment teams? That also has a bearing on how folks judge their opportunity to look for these kinds of investment strategies or embrace these investment strategies. So before you is a resolution that we're asking the board approve that does speak to our responsibility for including these factors as an issue in deciding on what things we invest in. We're saying that we would monitor this for at least 2 years and see what the results are, and if there's any need for any adjustment. So I'll take any questions, or if any other board members wanted to add anything that I may have missed.
Thanks,
I
Sam.
have a question.
Does anybody? Yes, hey.
Yeah.
Hello?
Okay.
Al Feldstein, I have a question. What would the committee see as a possible existing proposed or some type of investment that, or even something will be divested that would not fit into the environmental or the social agenda?
It's interesting. I think Elizabeth brought up an issue about, are there certain things that we are invested in right at this moment that we wouldn't want to be, or are there things that we may see may be detrimental, let's say, to a historic site? And Elizabeth, you may bring up this address this a little bit more than I do, but the issue of flooding on historic sites. And how the environment affects that. Are there particular companies that may have a direct negative impact? And there are probably some, but But that question was asked about our existing portfolio, and there were none in our portfolio that were seen as necessarily negative. And partly the other way of looking at this is from a positive perspective, in the sense that a lot of companies are addressing pressures from their own investors about how what they do that actually helps the environment, and how it hires its employees, and things like solar energy, electric vehicles from a very positive perspective. There are a lot of companies out there that are moving in that direction because they have to. So it's not as much a negative thing, but it's very much a positive thing in looking for those particular companies that are moving us into a more direct addressment of these issues to improve the environment. So I don't know if that answers you directly, but it's much broader than just who you don't invest in.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the response.
I have Dick Charlton here. I serve on the investment committee, and probably everybody realizes it, but maybe they don't. We don't have any investments in specific individual companies. We're entirely invested in a broad range of mutuals, even the Russell 2000. That's 2000, and the Russell 1000. So
you still there, Dick?
And we rely on Brown Advisory at this point, who I think has been doing a very good job to keep us on the right track there. It's just a comment for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Julie?
Oh, I just wanted to say this is really exciting because it really sounds like a twofold win insofar as aligning with the larger mission and vision of the MHT, in addition to the work in the areas of, relevancy, diversity, and inclusion. So just, kudos to the folks who put time in on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. Does anybody else have any questions for Sam or any of the members of the committee? Any comments before we move forward to pass the resolution? Okay. You all have the resolution before you. I'm not going to read the entire thing. But at this point in time, could we have somebody make a motion to pass the resolution regarding this new policy for our investment policy?
So moved. Kirsty.
And
thank you, Casey.
This is Julie. I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Is there anyone abstaining from this vote? No? Okay, very good. Motion passes. Thank you. Sam, you don't get a break.
Can you hear me? I'm not sure if I have lost the connection now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh,
Never
okay.
Sam? Yes, you're good.
Okay.
So thank you. We're going to move on to the Equity Working Group report.
Thanks. Well,
Sam, I think we did lose you.
okay. Can you hear me? I kind of lost and then came back.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
We are, I hope all of you have received a Envisioning Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion questionnaire that the work group has put together. This is with some board members and staff. And what we'd like to do, and what we're imploring you to do, not like to do, we're imploring you to fill this out. You can add your name or not. People will not be quoted directly from what they put down, but it's up to you whether you want us to know who wrote what. But we wanted to get some sense about what everybody thought about these issues. Instead of telling people what they need to do, how to do it, what their opinion should be, view should be, we want to find out from you what you all are thinking about in this issue. Both the board, it's very important that the board return this as well as the staff, because we want to move this along, address these issues in a way that people feel comfortable talking about. People feel that they're being heard and listened to. We aren't assuming that everybody's on the same page. We certainly know what's going on in the country right now, the diversity of opinions on these particular topics, but it's something that we can't ignore. And I think we're in a field where the stories we tell, the history we present, and the involvement of all of our constituencies is of the utmost importance. But it starts with us and how we look at our organization and how we feel that our organization is moving forward or not moving forward, and how your views are associated with that movement. So we feel this is the first step to understand our staff and our leadership on these particular issues. We're asking that everybody take the time to fill this out by March 25th and send it out. And from looking at that, we'll figure out what some of our next steps are. Where people lie in this field of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I implore you, and if you don't, we're going to contact you if you don't send it back. So we're going to nudge you as much as we can and feel comfortable in, but I implore you to take the time to fill this out. And it's about just what you think, what you feel as an individual, not what everybody's telling you to feel, but just what you feel about these particular issues. So, questions, comments?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jim Delgado. I'm very pleased to see this, and I thoroughly applaud it, and I intend to fill it out pretty quickly. As some of you may know, for the last 3 years, I've been heading up a project with the maritime archaeology of Clotilda, the last ship known to have brought people to America to enslave them. Justice, equity, diversity all figure in this powerfully. And in that, it's been a reminder to me of how archaeology plays an important role in helping shine light on the truth, to face difficult facts, and to also see how archaeology gives voice to things that hitherto had not really been mentioned, or mentioned obliquely, or in other ways contextualized. And when I work particularly with the community there in Africa Town, many of them descendants of those people that were brought over against their will, what you see is the important, powerful personal impact this has, particularly for a group of people who were told this simply did not happen, with a wreck hidden in plain sight in their community. And so whatever we can do as the MHB, which we already are, but I think there's so much more to be done, I think is absolutely essential. And this is pretty powerful to see. And hopefully we will be able to continue to do more in the way of action with it. I would also note that I also see with tremendous, approbation projects that are taking place that speak to this. And MHT has been in the forefront in many ways, but this is not a time to rest on kudos for past work. It's time to really put our shoulder to the wheel and do further. So Sam, this is tremendous. And Julie Ernstine and I work together to put Clotilda on the National Register, and hopefully it's going to make it to NHL status. Status alone is one thing, but getting those stories out is so much more important. And so, bravo Zulu, as we say in the naval world.
Thank you, Jim. Does anybody have anything to add and any questions? March 25th is the deadline. So if everybody can get your survey filled out and get it back, that would be wonderful. The sooner the better. So, okay. Anybody have anything? No? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sam, for all the work on this. Appreciate it very much. We're moving on to budget and legislation. Elizabeth?
Yes, so as you can see on this slide, I just have a couple updates from our last meeting. We had our operating and capital budget hearings in February since we last met, and they went very smoothly. There were no little questions for us, no recommended cuts. So we're anticipating that all of these grant funds will proceed as included in the governor's budget at the levels included in the governor's budget. There have been two changes. There was a supplemental budget that was issued by the governor's office, and it included $150,000 in general funds that can be used for the stripping and re-waxing of all of the Maryland military monuments that are under a cyclical maintenance program administered by the Maryland Military Monuments Commission, which MHT staffs. So that's very good news. It's gotten to the point where these bronze monuments, which have received cyclical maintenance over the years, have different wax recipes that have been applied over time, and they're not necessarily working well together now. So we've been advised to take all of the wax off down to the base level and put on a coherent layer of wax. So this will allow us to do that and have the monuments in great shape in time for the 250th semi-quincentennial was really the goal. The second item is a piece of legislation that's of interest. This is House Bill 1088, which would increase funding for the African American Heritage Preservation Grant Program, which we administer jointly with the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, from $1 million per year to $5 million per year annually. It doesn't change the program substantially insofar as it remains a bricks and mortar program solely. It does make some changes, such as eliminates a match requirement for any applicant and raises the cap, or really establishes in statute a cap for certain types of applicants, so that the grant award cap is $500,000. Nonprofits have no cap on the amount of money they can request from the fund. Up until this point, the grant cap has been established just as a policy measure by the commission and MHT working together from year to year. And right now it's $100,000, but this would create something in statute. We were not involved in crafting the legislation. It is led by the Speaker of the House, so there's a lot of weight behind the House bill. And The only concern we have is that there is no provision for additional staffing, and we have some reservations about our ability to administer such an increase in the grant program going forward. But that's certainly an exciting development in terms of legislation and in the budget, and so it's proving to be a very, very good year. The only other item that I will mention is the study of historic African American cemeteries that we're undertaking right now. This was the result of some language, including in the Joint Chairman's report that came out of the last legislative session. And there was direction given to MHT, the Maryland Commission on African American History and Culture, as well, to work together on a study of obstacles to preservation of historic African American cemeteries and how a grant program might be crafted to respond to those obstacles and resolve them. We have a survey still out on the street. We've been receiving survey responses since the summer from individuals who are able to access this electronic survey or hard copies of the survey, which are available for download. And we are meeting with 3 focus groups consisting of descendants of self-identified descendants of individuals who are interred in African American cemeteries, starting, I believe it's next week. And Chanel Compton, the director of the commission, will be moderating those focus groups. And as of May 15th, we need to have a draft of the report up on the website of the commission for public comment. So we will, following the focus groups, we will be synthesizing all the data that we've received from those meetings, from the surveys we've received, from the research we've done on what other states do when it comes to historic African American cemetery preservation, and also looking at analysis of what local governments do in this area. And the report will include recommendations for what the state should do to address the current state of affairs. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Excuse me, Elizabeth, I have to go. I've got a American Legion meeting. I'm treasurer, so I'm signing off. Good to talk to everybody. Good luck. Keep up the good work. Bye.
Bye.
Elizabeth, I have a question.
Yes.
Actually, 2, and I'll get them, and they're very quick. You might have covered the first one in terms of the increase in the African American preservation grants. In terms of matching requirements, what is and what are the matching requirements, and what about those areas in the rural parts of the state that may not have the resources or the population base or whatever to meet a matching requirement? That's the first question. And the second question is, in terms of the cemetery thing, how many jurisdictions, or has there been a good response statewide in terms of the cemetery survey? Thank you.
There has been a good response statewide. I think maybe only Garrett County, I struggled a bit in getting a response, but otherwise we have had responses from all of the counties and Baltimore City. In terms of the matching requirement, the African American Grant Program currently requires matching funds only from local government, local government, for-profit, and private individual applicants presently, and that match does not need to be cash. It can be in kind. But what this bill would do would be to eliminate matching requirements from any type of applicant, and it removes the matching fund criterion from the rating and ranking process. So that's totally off the table in this bill.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Thanks, Elizabeth. Then I guess we are moving on to litigation and legal issues. And at this point in time, we need to go into closed session. Am I correct on that, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I don't know if Paul or Rianne have anything they want to report on in open session before we go into closed session, which would be the next slide. Maybe you can advise us, Paul and Rianne.
Rianne, I don't have anything for open session.
Okay,
Okay.
then we can move to the next slide and then we'll have a motion to go into closed session.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to go into closed session, please?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And who made the motion? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I have Jim as seconding.
I think it was Sam.
Sam,
think
okay,
Sam.
great.
Yeah.
So then if we could take a minute and allow Andrew and MHC staff who are on to, except for Ann and myself, to jump off the call, and Andrew will stop live streaming. And Andrew, you'll let us know when that is the case. Historic preservation grants are due on March 15th, so that deadline is coming up quickly. The Historic African American Cemetery Survey that I had mentioned is still out. We're still accepting survey responses until the end of the month. The last thing I will mention is really a question about the next board meeting. MHT staff have returned to the office 3 days a week, and we're teleworking 2 days a week. But we're starting to have in-person meetings again. So the next meeting of the board is in April, or no, it's in May, sorry. And there's the question of, do you want to meet in person, or what is your feeling? So I just wanted to get that, some sense of that. And if you wanted to meet in person, then we'd need to do some thinking about where we would meet, here in Crownsville or somewhere else, and so forth.
Is there any possibility of hybrid meetings?
Yeah, that was my question.
We have gotten better with hybrid meetings here at Crownsville. So I was in the MACA meeting yesterday, the Maryland Archaeological Advisory Committee meeting, and it seemed to work better than our first experiments with the meeting owl, which were kind of a mess. But so we have that capacity here, and it should work okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have any thoughts on meeting in person and where you'd want to do that?
Just to go on record, I would be a fan of a hybrid meeting, simply because, you know, just my circumstances, but I take annual leave to participate in these. And we too are looking at a return to office from our 2 years maximum telework. And so it does have a very real difference on, you know, what those logistics would be, and a hybrid meeting would just make it much easier to navigate.
Okay.
I also like the hybrid approach, Sam.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Quite honestly, if it were hybrid, I would stay home. It's just easier. So I'm fine with sticking with a virtual format.
Yeah.
Myself.
Okay. I thought we'd all get together and just have a party. Just the fact that we were.
I might have to have my wife show me how to do this Zoom stuff if hybrid, because I've been just phoning in. I don't want to mess with my wife's computer to Zoom, so. But I might have to learn that.
Okay.
Laura, I can do either way, although I miss seeing you all and breaking bread, but I can do either way, so I'm good.
Great.
Has there been a financial impact as it pertains to the budget as to having this Zoom stuff rather than everybody traveling in?
Well, I mean, we don't buy lunch for you guys, you know, but you're not that expensive a date, so it's not too bad.
But how about,
you know, the mileage reimbursement is minimal. So yeah, there are some savings, but, you know, not to the extent that I can hire a new staff person as a result.
okay.
I think for us now, with the gas prices going up, it may be, you know, a better option to do it from home.
That is a good point.
Well, I always like to come in the night before because of the distance and stuff, but.
And the time to commute too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that you just plan on having one in-person meeting a year so that everyone can get together. We don't have the preservation awards like we used to, which was an opportunity to get together. So you could explore that and have it somewhere interesting where people would actually, you know, it would be fun to see a cultural resource of note or something. So, but that's up to the board to decide.
I like the hybrid.
Well, it sounds like so far the majority prefer the hybrid. That's what I'm hearing. So, I guess if we can make that work, then we will plan the May meeting to be a hybrid. Okay.
That's fine, and we can have it in the MHT boardroom, because I think since there will be a number of people who will not be attending, there'll be enough space to spread out and feel comfortable.
Right. That sounds good. Okay. And then we'll just sort of decide from there, I guess, if we want to try to meet at the end of the year in person, and we'll just take it sort of a meeting at a time approach. Yeah. All right. So, May meeting will be hybrid, and I don't think that there are any other items on the agenda for discussion. Does anybody have anything that they want to bring up before we adjourn? No? Okay. Well, thank you all so very much for your time and your input, and I hope that everybody has a wonderful rest of the day and stay safe and healthy, and look forward to talking to you all soon.
Do we need a motion to adjourn, or do we just adjourn?
You know, we probably have
cool.
to have a motion. Do we have to have one, Elizabeth? Or can I just say we're done?
So moved.
So moved.
Second, whatever. Sure.
Bye.
Okay. I think everybody is in favor of adjourning, correct?
Yes. If you're in favor of adjourning, turn off your screen. Very good.
Bye-bye.
Thumbs up.
Thanks. Take care,
Everybody.
everybody. Bye.
Bye. Have a good one.